Now, even if you don't understand the intricacies of the offside rule, you may well be aware of expressions like bung and tapping up. Thing is, that's nothing new, and now one of soccer's first whistleblowers has told his story.
During the late 60s and early 70s, Leeds United had a team that dominated football both at home and abroad.
Technically, they were, without doubt, possibly the best team on the day in the country.
Leeds United are turning on a brilliant show.
They were fantastic teammates who always played for each other under the watchful eye of their manager, the great Don Revie.
We all stuck together, and Revie was a fantastic manager, and he brought us up in the family spirit.
That was the team that placed the city of Leeds firmly on the footballing map. They were great teammates then, and they still keep in contact with each other now. All that is, except for one.
Hello, I would like to buy a ticket for next week's game, please. The name on my credit card is Mr. G. Sprake.
Gary Sprake kept goal for that Leeds team over 500 times. Prone to the occasional goalkeeping error, he was, however, undoubtedly a Leeds United legend. Whereas Gary's famous teammates are celebrated, the name of Gary Sprake has fallen into obscurity. This is the first time Gary's been back to Elland Road since the glory years. He's no longer welcome at the club that made him famous. He's never been invited to any team reunions. And if the club knew he was here, they'd probably try to turf him out. He was first choice keeper for 10 years. So why has he been exiled? Well, it's for more than the occasional goalkeeping blunder. In 1977, 3 years after leaving the club that made him famous, Gary spoke to the Daily Mirror, accusing his old manager, the legendary Don Revie, then the England team manager, of involvement in match fixing. Richard Stott was the investigative reporter of that article.
Don Revie had been attempted to fix matches, football matches, over a long period of time, from the early 60s right through until the early 70s.
A few players were asked to take it easy, and they would get some holiday money.
Gary was very useful on several fronts because he gave us an insight into how Revie was acting.
I was asked against Birmingham City to go into the Birmingham City dressing room and speak to two of my Welsh colleagues, and I point blankly refused.
And you're convinced that this was an example of match fixing?
It did happen. If it didn't happen, I would have been sued by now.
Returning to Elland Road after all these years, with the accusations he made about Don Revie, it was like entering the lion's den.
Don Revie, knowing the extent of the games that he had attempted to fix, assumed that Gary Sprake would have the same knowledge. And within 2 weeks of him being told that Gary had signed a contract with the Daily Mirror to tell us what he knew, Don Revie quit secretly the England managership, took the job on the Emirates, and rushed off to the continent disguised an Arab. And there was absolutely no doubt at all that the reason he did that was because he thought that the earth was about to cave in around him over these allegations.
Don Revie was a highly respected manager. He enjoyed godlike status here at Leeds United.
Every time he gets it, then I want you, Norman, tucked in at the back at Hamden Park, behind Terry Cooper, so he knocks it off square, then we can pick the people up with less ability.
These accusations didn't go down well.
I said something wrong about the great man, didn't I? I mean, and I still think he was a great manager.
Revie had managed to foster a family-like feeling within his squad.
We were very, very close. I don't know, there's a bond that nobody could break. We used to love being our own little close-knit family.
I broke ranks, and I've actually said something bad, which did happen, against Revie. And I understand their feelings, but I've lived with 30 years, so it doesn't really bother me.
For someone who claims not to be bothered, it was an emotional return to Elland Road.
Leeds United and many of the other players are still in denial about this, and that he is a pariah says how people can kid themselves, frankly.
According to footballers, what goes on in the changing room stays in the changing room. The fact is that during Leeds' glory years, the team were a tight-knit bunch who would never publicly come out and criticise, let alone accuse, the manager who was held in enormously high regard. Gary had done the unthinkable. He'd broken ranks. Hello, is that Alan? Hello there, it's Damien Johnson from BBC Television. In the making of this film, we contacted nearly all of Gary's ex-teammates, asking them if they were willing to meet the man who 30 years ago they saw as a traitor. Yeah, sure. I appreciate the feelings are running quite high on this, but they reacted as one. No chance, because of what he did. None of them ever wanted to speak to him again.
I don't think I'll ever get invited back because there's a few players that don't really want me here really.
The powers that be at Ellen Road have washed their hands of him. So what do the fans who used to sing his name from the terraces have to say about the way he's been treated? Hello, fellas. Tea all right? Tea? Yeah. 4 teas, please. He made these allegations, didn't he, against Don Revie. What did you make of them then? What do you make of them now?
I'm afraid I made the same of them then and what we make now. We were disgusted by them. When you speak of Don Revie, you speak of Leeds United. Before Don, we weren't a club.
I'm pretty disgusted that a lot of things came out about Don after he died and wasn't in a position to defend himself.
For the accusations that were made and for one of them to come from our players, unforgivable and unforgettable.
Would you welcome the opportunity to speak to Gary Sprake?
As an individual fan, I would, yeah. I'd maybe like to just ask him, behind closed doors, what really did go on.
Unbeknown to them, we'd arranged for Gary to meet up with those fans he'd angered all those years ago, and who still bear a grudge to this day.
Still talk about him as a good goalkeeper, and there's still conversations to go on. Some blame him for the follies, and some.
Do you recognise this fellow?
Of course I do, yes.
How are you, right?
Do you know who it is?
How are you?
Yes.
How are you?
I've sprung this on you.
How are you, right?
What's it like to see him after all these years?
It's good.
Very nice.
It's good.
Interesting. Nice, yeah.
Is there anything you want to ask him?
Not with a camera running. No. Bearing in mind what I've just said.
When this thing came out, it shattered not only the players, not only the family, but the people that work behind the scenes, the many fans that followed up and down the country and never missed a game, and the pride that we had in Leeds. Yeah. It was all questioned. And I think that's some of the reason why that it sticks a little.
I mean, it did happen, and it was unfortunate it did happen, but since I've said that, I've been made an outcast from the Leeds players.
It was part of their days, and I think really it's a forgotten thing that Gary himself has resurrected in recent times.
Gary Sprake wasn't the only one to make these accusations. The former Arsenal captain Frank McClintock and the England World Cup winner Alan Ball, to name a few, all admitted they'd had a word in their ear from Leeds United. The difference was, Sprake was a Leeds man.
So if you're lonely,
It wasn't just me, I was just a small cog in the story. There was about 50 other people involved, and you know, they can't all be wrong.
The evidence against Revie and his underhand dealings continued to mount. However, the Don didn't just bribe players to throw matches.
Revie approached Alan Ball and offered him £100 a week to make a nuisance of himself, trouble at Blackpool, which means that he got stuck on the transfer list and that Leeds would then step in. It is a classic act of corruption to pay somebody who's been paid by another club money to make a nuisance of himself.
Unlike Sprake, Ball didn't want to talk to us. However, the Nottingham Forest keeper, Jim Barron, had his own corruption story to tell.
Before the game, we're in the dressing rooms, knock on the door. A couple of lads went outside, had a chat with a couple of their players, came back and somebody said, there's some money on the game if we lose it. And my instant reaction was then, no chance. And I just said, well, look, I'm not interested. Walked away and I left it at that.
Billy was always the person who had a word. And Billy Bremner was seen in the Nottingham Forest dressing room, at the door of the Nottingham Forest dressing room.
Billy Bremner was the one who actually spoke to our players.
The evidence against Revie is indisputable. He used his captain Bremner to bribe members of the opposition. Would you say that Don Revie is a cheat?
No, I wouldn't say he was a cheat.
I think somebody who tries to fix a game, if he was the one who did it, then I think he would be a cheat.
Yes, Don Revie was a cheat.
Gary, you say that what Don Revie did isn't cheating, but if he's getting someone to offer money to an opponent to lose or not try, that is cheating, isn't it?
Well, I suppose you could call it cheating.
Gary Sprake was undeniably a great goalkeeper for Leeds United, but his choice to sell his story and accuse a legend of cheating won him few friends. Don Revie was a flawed genius whose desire to win by fair means or foul seemingly overtook any moral principles. Gary made a few goalkeeping errors during his career, but according to his teammates, his biggest error was simply telling the truth.
It scraped me back, and I hope that you'll come back in the future as well.
But there'll be no official return visit for this goalkeeping legend. Gary's destined to always remain an outcast at Elland Road.